Welcome to our weekly new global media talk show. Today is August 11, 2024. Today, we're going to be speaking about two issues here. We have one will be the president's tour on OIC infrastructural projects. And then the second part of our show will be illegal allocation of land to some government officials and politicians. We have our guest here, Mr. Dudu. Welcome to the show. And
Thank you very much, Mr.
thank you,
Sawaneh and
thank
Mr. Ceesay. It's good to
thank you,
share a platform with you people.
thank
I'm
you,
really honored
thank you,
to be
thank you,
part of
thank
the
you,
show today.
thank you. And I
Thank
have
you and welcome.
my co-host here, Sam Ceesay from
Yeah,
Indiana, United States. Sam, welcome.
thank you,
And
thank you.
Famara and Madam Boj, will probably join us later. And I'm your host here, Momodou in New York. So Mr. Ja, I know we've
Yes,
been outspoken individual when it comes to Gambian issues and political issues. We've seen you on different interviews and then you've been a patriotic citizen. So I think this area is something that, your opinion will really matters. Yeah, so let's start with the tour, the president's tour on OIC infrastructural project. What is your take on that?
well, first and foremost, I believe the OIC has added value to this country. It was a big event, and Gambia hosting it really made name for itself, looking into account. We've been in charge for the next 2 years, I would say, as chair and head of the OIC Secretariat. That's definitely a big plus for the country. But as far as the projects are concerned, too much expectations. Like people expected for all the projects to be done before the OIC will be hosted. It would have been better if it had run that way. But there were hitches and challenges here and there as far as the organizing body is concerned. But nonetheless, it was my belief that the projects have to continue. Too much talk on the social media and even nationally within country about funds being mismanaged, they've eaten the money, the roads will not be completed. But it was my belief that all those allegations couldn't be true and work will be in progress. And that is what we're seeing. Now, the president with other dignitaries, ministers, other officials going around to look at the progress of those roads, I think that was very, very important. But yet still, it's up to them to come and tell us actually what will be our expectation. Work is in progress, there are inspections, but what are we really expecting? If you look at the highways, our expectations are through using the sideways. There are most people who live around those ends. Now, it becomes very, very challenging if those roads are not connected to the highway. There are long drives that people need to take to make a turn in order to access off-road, I would say, avenues, which is definitely very, very challenging. And I've seen with my own eyes the ions that they've used at the edge of the road. There are people bending it to create roads for themselves so that it would connect to their streets and other avenues, which is definitely not very welcoming. But it also shows about the planning that it's definitely has to make connections to those streets because it will be very, very frustrating if you have a vehicle, you ply the highway and it cannot connect to your streets. Yes.
So in other words, OIC is a success, brought a lot of development. However, we lack in the fact that it cannot connect to interstreets.
Yes, not success in its totality. There are challenges. There are, like I said, the expectations were high. More focus on road networks, especially the Battle Harding Highway. That would be a legacy for the president because for the first time in the history of this country, we have such roads being built. And according to the information received, 20 feeder roads are also going to be built.
You can hear him, Sam?
No, he's breaking now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's just a connection in Gambia. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's gonna come in a minute.
We're seeing them. Others are even yet to commence. Now, that in its totality would say it is a plus. It would.
Yeah. Gambia. Hey, Gambia. Sam, when am I
Yeah, I know. It's his connection. He was broken for the remainder part of what he said. I didn't hear that part.
Yeah. Anyway,
And
so
his screen is frozen now. So that's just a connection. That's the connection again. Oh, now he's out. He dropped out. I'm sure the internet kicked him out.
yeah, so Sam, just so before he comes in,
Yeah.
let's analyze what he spoke about. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd like for him to hear this too, but yeah, I wanted to piggyback on what he said about challenges. He's coming good. Some of the challenges they face, which is true, challenges they face, but I think it's just in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Ja. Thank you. I know connections in Gambia is not easy. It comes and goes. So yeah, but yeah. So I just want to piggyback on what you said about the challenges they face and things like that. So as I know I've never met you in person, but I release a lot of audios and I speak my mind that way, and on this platform too. So I speak my mind all the time when I see things, and I like to put in my few words. And these are things that I've already said on different WhatsApp audios. I think overall the OIC is good that the president went out to see the progress being made and doing that tour. I think, in my opinion, if I were him, he may have done this. I don't know. In my opinion, I think at one time I seen on the news, or I seen a video of him looking at the progress, and he said he was happy with what he saw. I saw that part. So I think in Gambia in general, I will talk about this and then get into the topic here. Organization is a problem for us in Gambia. Meeting deadlines is a big issue for Gambia because
Yes.
people don't take responsibility. People don't follow up. We can have a very good plan, but once you talk about a plan, and now people need to follow up to make sure they execute the plan to the T to make sure it's completed on the deadline. That becomes a problem for a lot of projects in Gambia. It's always a problem, and of course, excuse me. Of course, corruption is one thing. Is our biggest problem. We all know that. It's not new to anybody. Every Gambian knows that Gambia is full of corruption. We know that. So, but if I would say this, if I were the president, I would have taken the initial, when the construction started, that was one time to go. And then maybe a couple of months after that, go back and see the progress and then keep following up on that. And of course, have your minister give you updates with evidences. It's very important. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to hold that minister accountable. They can come and tell you one thing, but what's actually happening out there may be different, right? So I think I'm glad the OIC summit took place in Gambia, but in my opinion, we lost an opportunity. We lost a huge opportunity here because when you have something like this being hosted in a country like Gambia, such a poor country, we would have taken advantage of every single dollar that we get, every single dalasi that we get. We should have taken advantage of that and invested to make sure that everything goes as planned. That means start early. Start early. If you know that meeting deadlines are very difficult for Gambians, start 6 months ahead if you can. Start ahead of time. That way you may be able to even complete before the time. So the reason I said we lost a huge opportunity there is, for example, the 5-star hotel that should have been built.
Exactly.
That should have been built in Gambia because that is what was going to create more employment for people. If you think about it, I've been a hotel manager in the U.S. here. So I know I've been in the hotel industry since first time I came to the U.S. until I became a hotel manager, and then I moved on. But, knowing how hotels operate, if you think about it, that 5-star hotel would have created thousands of jobs for our youths. From the housekeeping department to front desk to guest services, reservations, the athletic club, which is the fitness center, will be there. I mean, you have bar and restaurant, you have service, you have waiters, you have banquet, you have sales and catering. All these are different departments in a hotel. And housekeeping, I mentioned that. All of these are opportunities to hire more people and have a lot of Gambians, men and women, to work there. So losing that was a big deal for me. That was a deal breaker for me. So for me, I call it not successful because we lost one of our biggest opportunities. Excuse me, that should have been, or that would have been an everlasting opportunity, because once you built that hotel there, it's going to stay there. It's going to stay there. People are going to continue to work. And then it's going to encourage hotel tourists from other places to come back there. A lot of tourists will, when they want to make reservations to go to Gambia for tourism, people that have stayed at Carabao Hotel before, Senegambia, and all of these other hotels, they're going to say, well, there's a new hotel. Let's go check it out. Let's check the new hotel. A lot of them will book to stay in that new hotel. You see, so that's why that's a revenue generating opportunity that we missed, employment opportunity that we missed. You see, all of that. So I think, and on top of that, instead of saving money, creating opportunities to build our country and move forward, we also took a lot of expenses by buying all those new vehicles and bringing them in that are just for 1 day or 2 days, and then you're done. I think I said this in my audience too. They should not have sold GEMS vehicles. GEMS vehicles should have been kept for a day like this. On OIC Day, you could have used those vehicles to get these people into the country without spending a dime buying another vehicle. But they mismanage all of that. So that's why I said corruption is our number one issue there. So in my mind and in my opinion, it was a missed opportunity. It was not successful, not well planned and executed. Otherwise, we would have been saying something different today. Look at all the feeder roads that Mr. Jat talked about that should connect. I was in Gambia in February this year. I left there around about end of February. So, and I know he's right. What Mr. Jat said is quite right. You get out, when I got out of my first time, I got out of my house to go to get on that Senegambia road. There was no way to turn that way. I had to take the service road and go all the way about half a mile down to be able to connect to this road. What's the point? I mean, if you see a road here, you should make sure that that road can connect to the highway, to connect to the main road. That becomes the main thoroughfare there. They should have created every single street that comes out, or most of them. At least if they say every, even if it's every, I don't know, every major road basically need to be able to connect without having people to go the opposite direction before they can join. So that's a bad thing. And I see that as cost cutting. When there's corruption in a place, people are going to say, you have this much money, and people tampered with those funds. What they're going to do is to cut costs. They're going to cut costs so that the little they have can fulfill the road, the obligations of the road, with all of those opportunities missing there. So, so in other words, we got the short end of the stick. That's what was handed to Gambia, the short end of the stick, because of corruption. So I'll stop here for a minute.
Thank you, Sam, for highlighting that additional things there. So it looks like we having problems like the feeder roads connection issue and mismanagement of funds, especially buying those cars just for 2 days, which was heavily criticized by even international world. It doesn't make sense. What you're gonna do with those cars, we don't even know What happened to those 100 cars that were bought? And the five-star hotel that Sam also mentioned is another failure, which was given to was given to one Senegalese that was involved with as a party's issue, and then never was executed and so forth. I don't know the real story about that, but the fact that it was mentioned and it was looked into, that would have been very resourceful for the country, not only for this event, but for the future events. And that might even, pull up the turnaround. I mean, for people who was gonna be coming in, who was gonna be coming in. Yeah, if they had a five-star hotel, maybe most of these leaders would have shown up because
Yep.
the security would be at one spot, and then things would have really worked out well.
Yep.
So, Mr. Ja, just a question here. Do you think the
Mm-hmm.
OIC project was a success or a failure? We already had some mention that it was a failure, and by the way he looked at it. You being on the ground, do you think it's a successful, it's a missed opportunity, or do you think this is something that was really successful across the board? I know, and I had you said that the president's legacy, it will be noted there because of the 20 feeder roads and other, like the other things that came with it. But do you think, like we could call it a success, and or where there are some missed opportunities? And if there are some missed opportunities, can you just highlight those and we can move on? I think my other co-host joined us, Famara. Famara,
Thank you, Sam.
welcome, Famara.
Thank you, Sawaneh.
All right, perfect.
Welcome, Farmer. Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Ja will come in, then you can also come in, and then we're talking about the OIC project. Uh, yeah, the successes and failures. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Ja, you can go ahead about those questions. Yeah.
Well, thank you once again. I think we'll have to gauge where Gambia was before the OIC. We have challenges when it comes to road networks, to be quite honest, especially the Battle Harding Highway. Those who fly down the coastal road and going down to the Jabang Highway, like through Senegambia, continuing to Battle Harding and Stincon, especially in the morning during working hours. Traffic was definitely a big or a huge problem. But these OIC roads have definitely eased that. Today, like if I want to go to Senegambia, Kolole N, I would rather use Lamen Yundum Airport Junction. Then I use the highway compared to going through Westfield, Serekoda to other areas because traffic is always congested. What you should usually should take you 10 minutes drive, you could spend half an hour or even 1 hour on traffic based on congestion. But you'll see it is very different when you use the OIC roads. That's what I said, that it would be a legacy for the president. It has not happened before. And like I said, the feeder roads are still work in progress. It is yet to complete. Unless and until that completes, also we'll be able to gauge and make some measures. Like missed opportunities, yes, of course, especially Brother Sam talked about the five-star hotel. I believe still it should be part of the plan that it has to be built. Like for future occasions and references, it will definitely hold weight. It will boost up the tourist industry, like he highlighted. There are certain people, accommodation, it's no joke for them. If you have the standards, then they will be willing to pay a visit to this country. Missed opportunity, yes. For me, I believe it deterred a lot of heads of states and other leaders from attending based on the standards of the hotels that were offered. You wouldn't expect them to stay in such hotels that we have 3 stars, 4 stars hotel, especially these Arab ladies, because they're not used to such lifestyle. And security-wise, looking at our hotels, the way they are built, when it comes to security, absolutely, it's very risky and it is challenging. Though Gambia, it's a peaceful country, peaceful in a sense. We don't have gangs compared to other countries that perform raids and kidnappings in large scale. So that peace, it's definitely in here. though there are certain crimes being committed, some burglaries, theft here, and attacks and the like, but not compared to other countries that are rated at high crime rate and it is very unsafe. So those missed opportunities, we shouldn't let go. All efforts should be made to make sure that they are built, let them complete these feeder roads, and all other projects that were part of the OIC. Some would say it's a failure, but like I said, work in progress. Still there's opportunity, there's time for them to give us what people are expecting. If not 100%, it's always difficult to deliver 100%. But at least I would say 65, 75% of what people expect would definitely be a huge plus for this government. And still, it is my belief it has to continue. It mustn't stop at where they are at the moment. And like what the president and his entourage did, monitoring, supervising, making site visits to see how much they have progressed. It shouldn't only stop with the OIC roads. This should continue. There are a lot of institutions where we have allegations and complaints. Sometimes you just don't leave it with the responsibilities of the ministers because is the problem solved? That should be the question. If it is not solved, then other mechanisms should apply, like this surprise visits. We're talking about Nemban night, Nemban today, Nemban Health Center or hospital. There are a lot of allegations coming from them, a lot of complaints. What is stopping them from going right there to get first-hand information from the management, from other staff? Then you'll be able to have a work plan or what you need to do in order to improve those conditions. So this is completely, and we've seen it when the ferry was going on a maintenance, challenges at the Ports Authority. The president went with his ministers and entourage. And I believe engaging them, it will give you first-hand information of what is going on and what needs to be done so that you can speed up most of the challenges we're facing. I think he needs to engage more with the public, trying to see how most of these institutions are functioning. That would definitely be a plus for his government too.
Thank you. Thank you. Before Famara comes in, you mentioned something. It looks like supervision and then holding people accountable is what was speaking, and then it looks like there's an improvement from the president and his team from this OIC and other projects. If I'm hearing you, that's what you tend to mention, right?
Yes. What I'm saying, like supervising, monitoring, it's very important, but it should not only stop with OIC work in progress like these roads they're building. It should extend to other institutions. I gave example of Ndemba. So they should do the same, visit these institutions to find out, get first-hand information from the management, from staff, what are the challenges, what are the problems, so that they'll or the reasons why they go to certain institutions. This is a challenge in this country. It's like most institutions are being left on their own. The way it is run, the way it is managed, there is no overall supervision and monitoring about execution of functions.
Thank you. Yeah, so Famara can comment. Famara, do you have any question for Mr. Jah on this topic, or do you have any comments?
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to thank Dudu Jah for accepting the invitation to join us as usual. We thank him for that. So like he said about the projects, and I also agree with him that we will not able to get 100% of what we expect from the OIC road project, but at least we have at least seen a significant improvement in terms of the roads being built right now and how they were in a couple of years ago. So obviously there has been a significant improvement, obviously. And then Areski is doing a very good job in Battle Hatton Highway. But when it comes down to my community, I'm from Bruford Dudu, and then we have a different company, which is Paviford. And then, they're the one working on Bruford Willinkama Road towards Ghana Town. And of course, Bruford Johnson towards Mohammed Jah Johnson and those things. Yeah. So we have experienced a delay in the start of that project, obviously, because they were offered 18 months contract, but they did not do much in the 18 months. So just last year is when they really started working seriously on the road. And then obviously there have been concerns recently, especially after the first rain. We have experienced a lot of floods in the community, simply because I'm not sure whether the feasibility study done for the road was carefully considered by this contractor, because obviously there are areas that need culverts, they are not being, put in place. And then, so that created a lot of, flooding in the first two rains, and that people's homes have been flooded. We never had any experience of that before. So, and then also the size of the road in Brufut, obviously, it's not very big. And then obviously the drainage system too is not that very, good. So I don't know how it's going to be like at the end of the project, but so far what we have seen, I mean, it's not a very good job, And I know the president was there last weekend, and I'm not sure whether the community have raised this issue to them, because there are a lot of complaints coming from the community, which was directed to the VDC, and then for them to take it up with the National Road Authority and have their inspection within the community, so that those issues can be highlighted before the end of the project, so that we don't have to go after they go away and then we continue to have that experience. But so far, I mean, Burfoot has been experiencing bad roads for the last two administrations, from Jawara to, Drammeh, even though Drammeh promised to build the road. And we had an opportunity when the coastal road was being constructed. We thought maybe they would divert it inside the community, but Drammeh promised to do it, but it was never done during his time. And then, so we're grateful to this administration for taking that bold step and then considering Burfoot to be part of this 50 kilometers OIC project. Yeah, it's just the contractor. I believe they are not very good compared to the one building the Baltin-Halden Highway. And then the money they're spending on it, obviously, should have been delivered very perfectly, or maybe very good. Yeah, but so far, I don't have much to ask Dudu, maybe the next question. But then, I want to thank him so much for honoring our invitation, and we look forward to more fruitful engagement in the subsequent topic to come.
Thank you. Yeah, so Sam, do you have anything before we move to the next topic, and then have Dudu kind of wrap this one out?
Yeah. Just a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight that I didn't say from my first comments that I made. One of those is, part of the reason, I think Dudu talked about a little bit on that too, part of the reason why other heads of states didn't come. I think Mr. Sawaneh also mentioned that. You see, the reason why I said that we had huge missed opportunities without having the five-star hotel there. I guarantee you, if we had built that five-star hotel and is in existence now, thousands of people would have been employed, and this would have stopped some of the boys and girls that took the back way. If they knew there's a hotel that's hiring thousands of people, they will probably go get a job there rather than taking the back way and go. So the other side is, I just want the government to understand, when we say infrastructure in some people's mind is the roads. It's not just the roads. This is part of the reason I would say that other heads of states didn't come. I mean, out of 57, we only had 6 presidents or heads of states that came. The rest of them sent delegations. They look at a variety of reasons, and heads of states they get advice, presidential advice. They get advice on different places, especially when it's time to visit a place. They want to know everything about that place. They have their embassies in there that is feeding them information. So they already know Gambia's infrastructure. Even if they built a 5-star hotel, that would have made a big difference there. But they would also look at the rest of the infrastructure. They would know that if you go to Gambia, electricity is not stable. If you go to Gambia, water supply is not stable. If you go to Gambia, there's no good hospitals there. If you get sick, guess what? You're on your own. You may take your flight and fly back to your place, because you're not going to fly somewhere, but you're not going to have good doctors and good facilities to get a treatment. They know all this, and it affects investors in all of these. So infrastructure is important: power supply, water supply, good schools for investors to be able to bring their families and stay there, invest in the country, and send their kids to school. If we don't have those good schools, those are all part of infrastructure. Transportation, the roads, and then the ferry service. This is all part of our infrastructure. So I want the government to open their mind to look at it from that broad view, that roads are not the only. So build roads, but continue to work on the infrastructure as well is important. And I think one mistake they did about that five-star hotel, the excuse that I heard is unacceptable, really unacceptable. Because when you're building an infrastructure like a five-star hotel, you put the contract out there for companies to bid for it. Okay, you should have a first choice, a second choice, and maybe even a third choice. If the first choice fail you, go to plan B. But you can't just tell the people, well, the person that we gave the contract to couldn't do it. So what? You're going to sit there and fold your hands and let us fail? No way. You need to go after plan B and get the plan B started. Let them start the projects to go. I think they mismanaged their funds and not able to pay for that whole five-star hotel to be built. I think that's my opinion, but I may be wrong. Knowing that there's a lot of corruption in the country, like I said, I may be wrong. I'm always open-minded, and I could be corrected at any time. But I think that is no excuse. There's no excuse for that. As a president, if you give that such a contract, an important contract to a builder, and that builder doesn't start day one, get him fired. Fire him immediately and go to plan B. Yeah, plan B, set example. Go to plan B, let plan B start so that we don't miss that five-star hotel. That's a very important part of our infrastructure, but very important part of growing our economy by hiring thousands of people to work there. And now we feel a huge missed opportunity. So I'll stop here so we can move on. You're muted. Mr. Sawaneh, you're muted.
Mr. Jobs, thank you so much, Sam, for that clarity. Mr. Jobs, do you have anything added to this particular topic, or do you think you exhausted it? Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, I want to highlight two things. Let me start with Sam.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to highlight two things. To start with Brother Sam first, about the five-star. Government never provided any financing for the five-star hotel. I think the agreement was between Imosal and the government. It was supposed to be planning. He is very right that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. There should be plan B, there should be plan C. If you want it to be a success, if you want it to materialize. But having only plan A, which was supposed to be pre-financed, now, if the contractor did not pre-finance, then definitely, there's no way that you'd be able to orchestrate to have a five-star hotel. I think government needs to learn from that. They need to look at that in future. Unless there are people who say that the money was 80, but no money was given. Expectations was that Imosal were going to pre-finance the five-star hotel. Some have been blaming GAIPA, that the approving authority, when it comes to that, and it was laid. Too many excuses, but overall, that's the expectation, and it was not met. Now, going back to Famara, what he highlighted, it's very true. I normally do go around those areas, both food highways, the roads, and etc. According to how he highlighted it, definitely the road, it's not wide, it's very narrow. And narrow to the extent, for instance, if you are driving on your right, if there's a car parked on the way and another vehicle is coming left, you'll have to give way for that one to pass before you'll be able to drive through. It shows and proves the narrowness, which is a problem or a challenge in this country, is about drainage systems. Our drainage systems are very, very poor. When you give contracts to contractors, I think they should be guaranteed at all good road. But your roads cannot be good if the drainage system is very poor. And that's what we experience every year, especially during the rainy season. Some of them, even the drainage systems that they're building with these roads, the connections, you don't see where it links to or where it heads to that would be able to create that space, that vacuum. For instance, when there's too much downpour of rain for the water to flow. This is a big challenge. Now, you cannot build roads neglecting drainage. Primary when it comes to maintaining and sustaining good roads. This is a challenge, even before the OIC. When it rains heavily, that's when you know that not only in Bulford, but a lot of areas they will keep flooding. And like you said, the feasibility studies should have discovered that. The feasibility studies should have shown them how they need to execute the downpour of rain. But before these roads were built, there used to be maybe floods, but not to that extent. But having built new roads for them, you expect the floods to be less. But if it keeps increasing, that shows definitely that the roads, how it is built, the planning is definitely poor. And they still need to look at that. And the contrast, when you do your feasibility studies, you do all your estimates and cost high standards. It should be something that people would definitely appreciate. But if a lot of money is being spent and instead of easing problem, it is adding up to flooding for their success. Yes, it's a euro, but accessibility. If roads are not accessible, then definitely we cannot call that a success. That's what I wanted to add what Famara highlighted earlier on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So just for the benefit of time, we just want to jump into the second leg of our discussion, which is the illegal allocation of land to some government officials. As we have had the meeting that Barrow had I believe in Bukama, he mentioned that those allocated land that was allocated to him, that Dabo mentioned, he was really mad about that to the point that he said, things that were not well seated by most Gambians. And they condemned, the president and asked him to offer apology by saying that he will stay in power for another until Dabo dies and make sure that he's buried before he leaves power. So all has to do with the land issue that Dabo actually said the president should return. That that should be going to those lands should go to keep justice and other people. We later on this week, about the beginning of the week or so, also realized that the Dabo, the UDP opposition leader also they were offered land during the 2017 and 2006, those days that he was the vice president. So that actually contradict and becoming a big discussion now that it looks like this government is kind of giving all lands to anybody in the political spectrum who is capable of making connections and getting these things, while it's supposed to go to the citizens who really deserve it. So I want you to comment in this, give your fair analysis, and we can also ask questions. Mr. Jack, can you hear?
Thank you. I think the issue of land, yes, the issue of land really need to be addressed in this country. It is definitely a big challenge. But it dates back as far as I want to trace it, that is during the days of former President Drammeh, the APRC government. Because when we talk about PPP, for us, we were around, but we're very young to understand about governance and administration at this time. But coming into Drammeh's government today, I think the ministry needs to look into the allocation of land proper. I think it has been abused. It is my belief, looking into the former regime compared to today. Because being a civil servant or in cabinet doesn't warrant one to have 5 or even more than 5. If we look thoroughly into land allocation, I believe a lot of Gambians will be very shocked that there are certain individuals, the amount of land under their possession is definitely uncalled for, which is not according to law. And what gives them the merit or the qualification to have ownership to all this land? We're tying it down to Lawyer Dabo, to the president, but it goes way beyond that. There are ministers involved, directors, permanent secretaries, other civil servants. These are, I believe, for Gambia, for accountability and transparency, let's set a land commission to look into allocation of land specifically. Then we'll be very astonished how the land allocations in this country. Though the caption, it's between the president and Dabo, which I feel, my honest opinion is, for both of them, I think they should be able to get lands for themselves without government being allocating lands to them. I am not saying it is wrong for government to allocate lands to them, but morally speaking, not legally, but morally, to become a candidate, a presidential candidate, they declare their assets. And in this asset declaration, we've seen how much money they have, how much lands they have, and all those positions. Now, why do they have to ignore all that and they want to add up to what they have when land is a big challenge in this country? Maybe I will come back to talk about what I feel would be the solutions about this land allocation, but I'm highlighting this issue that this asset declaration proved that they could afford land. So why do you still have to rely on government to allocate more lands for you when it is a challenge for a lot of Gambians when it comes to land allocation, talk less even to own a piece of land?
Right. Thank you. Thank you. I think this is a very hot topic, and we should get our lands back. That is what Madi Jobati, Madi Jobati and others are calling for. There should be investigations on this, and then see what the law says, and then make sure that we follow the law and take our lands from whoever has it illegally. What we hear is that they are ministers and some members, some family members who are related to these people in power, allocating, giving lands to themselves. And whereas this is supposed to be given to civil servants who could not afford it. I know some Famara and I will never get a land in the Gambia because definitely
we are out of the picture.
we are not qualified. So if we are out of the picture, why not others who already had it? And I don't know about you, Mr. Ja. Perhaps you are out of picture too. But this is there should be a scrutiny. That is what is echoing, and we should be serious about this and take these people to court, because if we don't do that, this is another basis of corruption that we need to uproot. If we're talking about corruption, land issue is another thing. But my question is that why giving people land while we need to also conserve land? We have an environmentalist here, Famara. I believe you can agree with me that it's not about giving every land out to build. Sometimes we need nature, preserve land for parks, for other things beside, people building. Let's Gambians start to build up instead of building and taking all the lands, or, not conserving lands as well. Because every time I hear giving land, this thing, land being sold, land, it looks like, to a point, Gambia, there will come a time that we would not even have any place, for animals, or any place for natural reserves, or any place to even do agriculture, because everybody's buying land. The next thing you're gonna know, we're gonna go towards Nyomi, Badibu, and then go to Makati and other areas. So I think this land allocation should be really strict, especially when it comes to like giving to the citizens and who to give it to. But I will allow my co-host here to chip in, and then you can come back, Mr. Ja. Yeah. Famara and Sam, who want to come first?
Famara can come in, I'll come in.
Thank you. So, Dudu, my question is, being a supporter of APRC, and then looking at how Drammeh own a lot of lands in Gambia, because the Janet Commission has, reported the list of lands that Drammeh own. Of course, some of these lands were given to him by communities. Like I've come from Brufut, and then we have Drammeh owns over 10 plots of land in Brufut. And some of these lands are very big. Some of them were given to him by our own people. Either they say, we give it to you to become a farmland or whatever it is. But now, comparing Drammeh's style of land ownership and then seeing what we are experiencing right now, like you rightly said, or Sawaneh rightly said, they already have lands. Barrow has a lot of lands. Dabo has a lot of lands. They've declared this during the presidential campaign. But the difference between these two lands is, one is given to Dabo's family, and the other one is the one we're talking about, Barrow, is the one that is allocated for government utility, because it is an area that is designated for a residence of the Chief Justice. So whether this current Chief Justice did not utilize it or not, the area is already given out for government utility. So I think it was wrong to reallocate a government utility to an individual. I think that's where the problem is. But nobody is saying the president does not deserve to own a plot of land if he deserves to get a land. So this is what we are talking about right now. So in this case, that's the similarities or difference here between the two. So now the president can be allocated a land in a layout, in a government layout, just like any other Gambians. But a land that is already given out for government utilities should not be given to a private individual. Now, with the case of Dabo, I think the one they're saying is for the family. I don't know whether Dabo himself was given a plot of land or not. But what we're hearing now is his wife and his kids were given plot of land. And then obviously, if those kids don't have a land at all and they are Gambian, of course, if they follow the right procedure, they could be offered a land. But now the question is, when the land was being applied, they were saying it was 2019, and then Dabo's influence might have contributed for them to get that plot of land. So which obviously is also wrong. So in this case, both Dabo and the Barrow do not deserve to be getting a state land, or their families members should not get a state land. Now, coming back to Drammeh, how Drammeh was owning land, and how you come into all these state land acts. And I agree with you that we need to stop giving out lands to individuals when the government don't have much land in play. Like I would always give an example of Brufut. Right now, we don't even have a space for a market. Yet a big chunk of Brufut Heights and Brufut layouts are being given out to individuals to settle when the community itself don't have a land for a market. We don't have a space for a market. Right now, we don't even have it, So it doesn't make sense to be giving a plot of land to government individuals when in our community, we don't have land for our basic amenities.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a sense at all. And to make the matters worse, GT Board is also entering into agreement with a private company called the Construct Limited. I don't know whether you're familiar with them or not. They're the one building this Seaview apartment. They started from Fajara years back. And then luckily, I was working for the Department of Parks and Wildlife, and I was one of the environmental impact assessment team that went to allocate that land at Fajara, just by the Fajara Hotel. And then they give that plot of land to the Construct Limited to build apartments in exchange of building a headquarters for GT Board and also building a craft market for Fajara Craft Market. So it's the same person now coming to Brufut Heights again with the same GT Board. And it was 1970 that the people of Combo decided to give government this plot of land for tourism development, primarily for tourism development. Now, if those lands are not being utilized for tourism development, why is government going into an agreement or partnership agreement with a private company to build apartments and sell those lands on those tourism development area at a higher price? A cheaper apartment is $110,000 US dollars. And the people of Burfoot have nothing. So why is government going into these private partnerships and then splitting lands into to individuals who can buy them themselves and then deprive the community of their basic fundamental rights to own a plot of land for amenities in their community? So this is the situation we are facing in our country, and I think the State Land Act is discriminating the people of Combo than anybody else in the Gambia. The people of Combo are desperate right now. People are tempted to sell their land at a cheaper prices because they are afraid the government is coming with this kind of laws to tamper their land. And this is a situation we find ourselves. So I'm so a lot of issues here, but now my question is, being an APRC supporter and see how Drammeh own lots of land, and now comparing how the same trend is continuing in the public services, giving land to people who can even afford to buy those lands, but they are getting it for free when the communities where these lands are located are wallowing in poverty. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Ja, you can answer that, and then Famara Sam can comment.
You raise very, very important points in the beginning of your deliberation. For instance, if you say following right procedure, what is the right procedure? What does the law say? If it is made public and say this is the right of Gambians will come out and say, I did exactly that, but I am not allocated a land. So I don't think it's only about following right procedure. Again, who is more deserving of having a land? It's a challenge in this country. The poor are not benefiting. The Gambians as a whole are not benefiting from this land allocations, but instead it is going to people who already have lands. Instead of focusing on the poor people, that's why I said I will end up with the solutions. Like what you highlighted about Drammeh having many lands that people even known or expected. Again, the commission did a good job to identify all this land. Now, the question is, where are those lands? You've taken it from the former president. What it is being used for? That should be the question. The focus is about that, though there are other issues as far as the commission is concerned. Land is key. We talked about preserving land, especially for communities. It is very important when it comes to these parks, when it comes to wildlife, when it comes to market, when it comes to playgrounds, etc. Development, you cannot call any country being developed if these communities don't have these amenities. These are like, I would sometimes classify it as basic rights because it's part of our daily life. Now, if these are not being given or it is not available, or even those available, look at the conditions, they're very poor. I'll give an example. For instance, back at the housing estate, there was a market, but today go to that market. People who live, that is a challenge. When you talk about the housing estate, it's people getting all these facilities within their reach instead of crossing, going to other communities. So that in itself is questionable. But the way land is allocated in this country, I don't think it's only about following right procedure or who is more deserving. A lot of people will tell you for more genuine causes that can create job employment, but they've not been allocated that. But it's given to individuals. That's what needs to be looked at. And if need be, even to take these lands back and make use of it where it will benefit groups or communities instead of few individuals, having 2, 3 compounds, 5 compounds. At the end of the day, you can only live in one, the other 3, 4, you will have to rent it out, making huge money for yourself and your family, while thousands of Gambians are out there physically. Most people are paying rent today because you in the diaspora, you're healthy. Our basic salaries cannot pay rent in this country, talk less of if they have to charge you 6 months or 1 year. What salary can you earn to pay for rent in this country? It is not possible, absolutely not. So all this should be the very reason that government look into land allocation to make sure that land preservations are also put into good use. But in this country, foreigners are even owning land, building it, and renting those lands to Gambians. We've still having highway. When my party was minister, that's when they rented that place. Yearly, they're spending on rent over $3 million. When government has a land, and all those millions you pay into rent could billion yearly, and it will be government property. So we're making good use of the land that is available in this country. That is a fact. The ones that are available, the way it is distributed or allocated, definitely, if you ask me, it is contrary to our laws. And morally, Gambians have been deprived of having lands. That's why, to make sure that land allocation will be addressed and moving forward. But I think government needs to be more serious about this land allocation issue and to look into those that were already given land. They need to look into it. Now, for instance, if land was allocated to me, maybe perhaps it's for me to live there. But am I really using it for that purpose? You'll find out that even a lot of them have sold it to foreigners. And what are these lands being used for? People will be very shocked if findings are done or if investigations have been done. Where these lands even ended, it would be definitely stories that would be very devastating to a lot of Gambians.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. I'm pretty sure, Sam would have something to say, but definitely those lands for Drammeh, commission have already looked into that, and most of them has been confiscated. So, but where are those lands? That's the question, that $1 million question that we have. But Sam, you can come in. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jara, and thank you, Famara. You guys have said a lot of things that was in my mind, but I will still add my little 2 cents to it. I think I think first, this land issue is creating a problem for Gambia, and is going to continue to create issues for Gambia. So, what is the solution? So, if I think of it from a solution standpoint, number one, I would recommend that the National Assembly look in the local government acts and make sure that land allocation, especially government reserve lands, which is state-owned properties, should have entrenched clauses before anybody can use them. So, meaning if they put that law in there, even the National Assembly themselves cannot change that law for that land or those lands to be sold to anybody else, period. It's for state use, period. If the government want to do anything there, they're going to do something in there, build something in there for state, for the country, for the people, meaning recreation places, the parks, the hospitals, the markets, and things like that, or anything that's for state, not for an individual. All right, I think we need to start there. And then second is, I think there should be a commission of inquiry, but this commission should be independent, not from the government, and National Assembly should have a team responsible for monitoring that commission. I think National Assembly need to take part in identifying independent contractors that will come in, look into the laws. This will include lawyers, of course. They will look at our constitution, look at the laws, and then the local government act, and see how these lands were allocated. At the end of their inquiry, any land that was allocated against the law should be returned, period. Doesn't matter who it was given to, the president, anybody should be returned, all right? So if we put something in place like that, I think that's what's gonna create a more of a structure for us. And this should also include our fiscal planning. The reason I say fiscal planning is some lands are being sold that should not have. Part of the reason for that is not only they are state-owned, but they are also, if you think about our drainage issue, I know Dudu talked about the drainage, and Famara talked about drainage. Part of our problem, if you look at in the past, we used to have rain. We always have rain every rainy season, right? Rain comes in the rainy season. We see water standing in different places. Nowadays, the water that is accumulating in the country, especially in the Serakunda, Banjul area and things like that. Part of the reason is if you look at drainage system, there is a natural drainage system and there's an artificial drainage system. Artificial drainage is the one that people the one that is being built to block drainage, right? And the natural one is the drainage that goes out on its own. If water comes out, if it rains, and then the rain will have a way to pass and go through natural drainage, because we allowing people to build on natural resources and the natural water pathway. They are building those and blocking the roads from drainage. That is part of the reason we're blocking some areas. And you have people that are coming out in the Kumba area and buying properties, buying land that is supposed to be for blocking the drainage. It's an area that the natural rain passes and go through the river. When it rains in the past 10, 15, 20 years ago, in everywhere, you see rain will run. When you see running water going when it rains, the next day there's no rain, there's no water standing anywhere because it all ran through the natural path to the river. Well, now we're blocking those by selling those lands, and people are building there. When people build there, well, the water, when it rains, it pours, water has nowhere to go because people have built in all of those areas. That's why fiscal planning also need to be involved so that our drainage and natural drainage path does not get blocked and nobody builds in there. So at the end of the day, on top of all of what Mr. Ja and Drammeh said and Mr. Sawaneh, I think National Assembly need to be involved. There should be an independent investigation into this, not people that the government just pick within the government because they could be favoring the government. But we need to get our National Assembly involved with independent contractors that will look into this. That includes lawyers and people that know about the law, that can look at the law and local government land act and identify what properties were given, how they were given, were they're legal or illegal. If it's illegal, they need to return those lands. If it's legal, if it's done the right way, you leave them alone. But to your point, the other part is, yes, we continue to favor the rich people and allow the poor to continue to suffer. That's what's happening. Those who can't afford it and really need a place to stay are not getting approved to get their lands, or they're not getting it. Instead, we're giving it to people that already have multiple properties, and now they're taking these lands and make them something else. It could be commercial, which is not good. So that's what I wanted to add to what you guys said. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for that. And of course, Famara, thank you. Mr. Jack, can you do you have anything to add to this? And then if not,
then
we can just wrap it up. Yes. But definitely the idea is to see how this what Sam said, how the solution would be to have National Assembly, be part of it and then investigate these things and then properly allocate these lands. But Mr. Ja, you have the floor. Do you have any other addition to this? And then if not, then Famara and Sam, if they have any question, we can wrap it up. Yeah.
He's muted.
You are muted.
Yeah. Well, of course, to add on to what Sam has said, besides the law or laws that need to be initiated in order to regulate this land allocation, it wouldn't be enough. I think social security and housing finance, they need to be engaged more into building estates. Like if you look at back at the housing estate, Kanifing, during the days of Drammeh also, whereby few other estates were laid into that. This needs to continue. The trend needs to continue. It will give more people opportunity to have a home, not to own an entire land, but to have a home, a residential home, sort of, compared to people, individuals been giving land. Because we don't have enough. And the standards of estates that we're building needs to be looked at. Let's adjust to other countries. Instead of just making it flat lands, let's make it into story buildings. You'll have more opportunity, more people to have a place to live. It is very important, especially for civil servants. Some spend their entire lives serving this country, but when they retire or when pension really knocks on their doors, nothing absolutely that they could gather together that should be able to push them forward or to benefit them personally, talk less of their families. So I believe the solution or the way moving forward is to continue. And this has to be decentralized. It does not have to be in the combos here. In all the regions, we need to build these estates, these creational facilities, because it is people's basic necessity when it comes to this issue. So besides the law, we need to start implementing and creating the opportunity for Gambians to have a place to live. And I experienced this in 2010 when I went to Libya. I used to live in Libya during the days of Gaddafi. There was no Libyan citizen that was homeless. Every Libyan citizen has a place to live, and they were not paying rent, electricity, water. It was all free. And some would say, okay, Libya had oil, but are they the only country that is producing oil? No, they had concern and care for their own citizens, that they created accommodation free of charge, including electricity and water. We're not saying make it free, but make it cheaper and available for the average Gambians, especially the civil servants. Affordability is very important because those doing real estate here, if you look at the price of the houses they're selling, most of their customers are those in the diaspora, looking into the average Gambian, how much are they earning monthly, talk less of yearly. So affordability also is very important and needs to be looked at.
So those are what we call government subsidized housing. Government pays some part of the housing, and then of course the poor people who are not able to pay would pay like like maybe half rent or so forth, especially our veterans and other civil servants. So these are all comes down to the government. What is the government can do? Government, all these sectors are under the government. Now you mentioned the social security. They have to build up, Gambia, we have to have standard, and we have to also know that our capacity is building. Before, Gambia is not 2 million. Now Gambia is over 2 million. So people are coming in. We have, immigration. We have, like people are, we're growing as a nation. So we should be looking at, the way we have to design our housing, and then kind of put some, incentive in certain areas, like where, people can go up. So definitely this is, a great area, and I think we have added value to some of the existing knowledge. So I think Mr. Ja, having you here really, really has brought in this discussion. I know we might have discussed this before, but the dimension has really expanded with the added knowledge that you brought in, and Sam and Famara. So, and then I would say, final words. Anybody before Mr. Ja says final words? Sam or Famara?
Yeah, I would say I have a hard stop at 1:30. I need to get on something else. But what Mr. Jack just said, I just wanted to add to that. Yeah, involving Social Security in building. I remember in Solutions for Gambia, we once talked about that when it comes to decentralization. Having Social Security involved in building outside of Combo and other places to create affordable housing for our civil servants and Gambian people as a whole. This will stop the foreigners coming to buy good location lands and building and renting it very expensive to our Gambian people. So that's a good point. I'm glad you said that too. So, but overall, thank you all very much. Mr. Ja, it was definitely good to have you here today. And I definitely look forward to seeing you again another
more
time.
engagement. Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you all. And thank you, Famara. Yes.
Thank you. Famara, your final words?
Thank you, Dudu, for coming once again. And then also, I want you to add your voice to repealing the State Land Act. It needs to be reviewed, especially the communities that are in poverty, and yet our land's been, divided among top civil servants that can afford it. So we need to change this State Land Act. It needs to be changed or repealed or whatever. Yeah, so I think that's very important. And I also agree with having Social Security to continue. Imagine all these lands that they are dividing among themselves. If those lands were given to Social Security today, maybe they build story buildings. It could be easy for teachers coming from the rural areas looking for jobs in the urban areas. They can have somewhere to rent, cheaply, and then, either they can own it or they can rent to own. Because if you've been renting for a house for maybe 5 years or 10 years or more, you can even start paying towards that apartment to pay it to become yours in the future. But in the short term, it's going to provide accommodation for people who are struggling to pay rent in the greater Banjul areas that come from the rural areas. Maybe they're not even interested in owning land in the combos, but because nature of their job, they are in combo, so they got to find somewhere to stay. So I think these are things that they need to look into rather than dividing lands to senior servants who can afford it. So I think that's very important. Thank you, Dudu.
Thank you. And Dudu, your final word. Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Dudu, your final words. You can hear us, Dudu? Hello? Yeah, Dudu, are you there? Yeah, your final words. Yeah.
I want to thank all of you. It's a great program, interesting topics. Yes, you people. I said I want to thank all of you. It's a great program, interesting topics. Yes, to thank all of you. It's a great program, interesting topics, and for having me on the show that are affecting lives, that are touching lives. It's really, really very important, and I look forward to future programs and engagements. I would always give my time whenever it is needed, and if I'm busy, I'll keep following. To be quite honest, I think it's global media. I was not in this always be made available. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
We thank you
to having you, and we will have you back, on other issues as well. We'll stay in touch. Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you all. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Famara, and then we catch up next week.
Yep.
Thank you, Sawaneh. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, our viewers as well. Take care.